Hey guys, welcome back. Hey, it's an awesome chance. We got an awesome chance today. We are interviewing the interviewer today. I'm super excited about it. First interview off my channel here. Dave Mack, the busiest man in carnivore. It's amazing. So hey, Dave,
Hey,
thanks for being here with me.
thanks so much for having me on, Charlie. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a great time. I just want to just learn from the experienced people who've been doing this a while, and just a message that's got to get out. Um, the world needs this, and we're the only ones carrying the message. But I'm very young. I've only been 6, 7 weeks now. This is the
Oh,
January
wow.
1st. What is it? Yeah. Um, but I am absolutely convinced that this is the way for me.
Mm,
Yeah. So I've seen incredible deliverance from food addictions and stuff. So that's why I'm so convinced.
nice.
But I want to learn from the experienced people out there, and I've watched your stuff, and I'm just really impressed by how you're so real with people and so encouraging. And so yeah, I wanted to hear your story and hear how you could help us grow in that area. So gonna turn the
Sure.
question back on
So,
you. How did you find carnivore?
well, um, I have always been uncomfortably overweight. Never been massive, but I've always been someone who had, this pot belly. Even when I was in high school, I always had this pot belly. And I never knew why. I was always like, well, I'm eating the right kinds of foods. There's no oils, there's no this, there's no that. But I'm always carrying around this pot belly. And so I didn't know what was wrong, but I know now, but I didn't know then. And the reason was my diet was made up of predominantly carbohydrate. And when I was bored, I would sit and eat half a loaf of bread to a loaf of bread on my own. I just
Oh,
like
bread.
and it was so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. Like I'd get the bread and I'd rip the crust off and then I'd ball up the middle part and I'd eat the middle part as like this kind of donut style ball. And then I'd slowly eat the crust as like almost like, like you would eat a cheese stick or something. And
That's quite a
then,
ritual.
yeah, and then I wonder why I've got this pot belly in junior high school and high school. And so this went on all my life. But one of the things that I experienced pretty early on was when I had a part-time job. I was introduced to alcohol. And I'd always been really socially anxious.
Mm,
And the introduction to alcohol changed things for me. Like as a 15-year-old having 2 cans and, by that stage I was the life of the party. And being the life of the party after being socially anxious your whole life and being frightened to be the first person to talk in a conversation and all that kind of thing, um, alcohol was great for me. And I didn't spiral out of control, but I did suddenly wake up and realize that this was the medicine I needed to be social. And, so life was pretty normal. But then I left high school early and I went on to get a full time job. And one of my first full time jobs was actually traveling around the world. And when you're traveling around the world with a lot of other expats that are traveling around the world and you're all living together and working together, what happens is you work together, then you go out and you get wasted every night, and then you crawl home and you're all young enough so that it doesn't take its toll yet. And you wake up the next day, you scull a few cans of cola, and then you're back at work. And so that was my life for 3 years. And that was using alcohol as this social lubricant is what made things spiral out of control. And so June 2022, I'm sitting in the doctor's office and he says, "You've got pre-diabetes and you need to do something about this alcohol problem." And, spoiler alert, I knew I needed to do something about it. It was just, it was easy to put off. And
Hmm.
so he wanted to address the alcohol first, and he wanted me to take this medication called antabuse.
Hmm.
And this medication it does nothing unless you drink alcohol after you've taken it, and then it makes you violently ill, potentially kills you. And so that wasn't a side effect that I was willing to accept. So
Oh, come on.
I I said to him, "Look, let me try and sort this out myself for a couple of weeks." And the only I knew I had to get some self-control back, right? Just to get over the hump of the addictions. But what to do, and the only thing that I knew had given me self-control in the past is when I'd done Atkins or keto or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
And I kind of just in the back of my mind, I was thinking, yeah, it's like whenever I was doing that, the need for alcohol went away. And of course, the need for sugar goes away because you're not meant to eat it.
Hmm.
And like just doing that, I knew that I could get off the alcohol and the sugar. So I went keto. And it was tough, and what I needed to do completely to make sure I wasn't doing taking in the alcohol or whatever was to kind of change change things about my day.
Hmm.
So I would normally like what would happen is my job would be like, driving me nuts. There'd be 2 hours left. I'd have two classes left, and I'd be like, "It's okay. Just when you finish work, you'll be able to have that beer. Just think about that." And so I had to like that stuff I needed to work on. And so what I had to do was make a conscious effort because I still had those feelings, but I had to make a conscious effort to not walk past the convenience store where I could buy a beer and
Hmm.
to, not go past the restaurants with people, sipping champagne outside or whatever it was. And so I had to just take the long way around effectively. And it worked. The next problem I had though was that I was having a lot of gastrointestinal distress. So I was in the bathroom much more than I wanted to be. And it was always very quickly after I had consumed my meal. And and you can imagine, I mean, I didn't start as OMAD. And so you can imagine after each meal it happening, it was getting a bit worrying. And so I started looking online for, what could this be? And I went onto YouTube and found a Ken Berry video, and he's talking about how I
Hmm.
think that might have been just around the time that he was switching to carnivore. And so he made a video about vegetables, and it was something like I was wrong or something like that. And he singled out a lot of vegetables, and the vegetables he was singling out were the ones I was eating.
Of
And
course.
so I went, okay, I don't particularly like them anyway. I'm only eating them because people tell me I need the nutrition. So they're gone for a week or so and I'll see what happens. And I've been carnivore ever since.
So what about the cravings with bread and all that stuff afterwards? I mean, the alcohol kind of went away. You could at least go around the place where the atmospheres where people were drinking, but I mean, carbs are everywhere.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things. Like, I think at this point, I wasn't addicted to bread. I mean,
Okay.
that was really more kind of adolescence and stuff, right? I mean, I always
Yeah.
liked bread, but the addictive part of it was in my adolescence. Um,
Okay.
what I was addicted to now was ice cream and um, energy bars and like the protein
Uh-huh.
bar, granola bars, all that kind of stuff. Anything with nuts in it was awesome. You know, I would any kind of cookie that had nuts or chocolate chips, love that kind of stuff. And so for me, um, kind of doing what I did to avoid the alcohol, going the long way round, that was effectively avoiding the triggers for the sugar as well, because the alcohol was sold in the same place. Because alcohol is sold in
Hmm.
convenience stores everywhere in Japan, so that's generally
Yep.
where you're buying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So then it moved from like carbohydrate in terms of like bread and stuff. Then it moved to kind of the straight sweets that became your go-to
Yeah,
carb.
yeah, and yeah, I was like, way. It was it's kind of it's sad and also kind of shocking when you think about it now. Like my job, I was finishing work at 8:30 or 9:30 at night, walking 15 minutes back to the station, and my dinner was on the train. And my dinner would be like bag of potato chips, a block of ice cream, and a beer. And then I would change trains, and when I was changing trains, there's another convenience store. So I'd be like, "Oh, just, I've got to wait 5 minutes for the train to go. I'll just go and get another beer from the platform convenience store."
Yeah.
So it was like I was on a path to destruction. And it wasn't like I wasn't drinking because I don't think I was really drinking from depression point of view or anything like that. It was just I was just out of control.
Was it also like partially like loneliness? Do you think? Like, I mean, that's kind of a, I get up, I go to the train, I teach my classes, I go back to the train. I mean, is it also loneliness maybe? Like,
Yeah, I think there's probably a bit of that as well, because I was working late, I'm getting home and everyone's in bed.
yeah.
So it's like, and in the morning, my daughter's off to school and whatever, and it's like I don't see anybody all week. So yeah, there was probably a loneliness component to it as well.
And was your family kind of, then they weren't seeing what you were doing to yourself.
That's right. They didn't see what they were doing and what I was doing, and I mean, my wife knew I was a drinker, but
Okay.
I don't think she realized how bad it was, because a lot of the drinking was while I was, because it's okay to drink on the train in Japan. A lot of the drinking was on the train or walking home or something like that.
Okay. And I know you live in Osaka, you live in Japan, and like I really we when we first rode back and forth, I was just in Fukuoka, Japan, with my baseball team, and I
Nice.
know there's like all these rules about like not eating in public, or you have to stand to the side, and but I didn't realize it was that you were so free to eat in the train. I That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's, to some degree, it's kind of frowned upon, but everyone does it, especially in Osaka.
Okay.
In Fukuoka, it might be a little more kind of, they might be a little bit more, I don't know, conservative or something, but Osaka is known as kind of the friendly city or the friendly capital of Japan or the comedy capital of Japan. So, I mean, salarymen, they just do whatever they want. And like a train in Japan is loud because there's all these drunk salarymen shouting and yelling and joking and stuff. You go in the opposite, you go to Tokyo and you get on the subway and it's dead silent.
Hmm.
There's more people, but it's silent. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite a contrast.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Um, so your wife kind of knows what's going on. Is she Japanese? Is that how you ended up there?
She is. I ended up
Okay.
here just because I wanted to change, and I met my wife after I'd been here for quite a few years.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Um, and so was she raising the kids differently, or how is that now with here you are carnivore now, you're home much more, at least
Mm,
presently.
mm.
And what are they getting from this whole thing?
So, I mean, they're still eating normally.
Okay.
Um, I think one of the things, person by person, this is obviously going to be different. But I think generally speaking, culturally in Japan, it's very difficult for a Japanese person to do something like carnivore because culturally you don't turn down food. You know, if you went out with your friends to a restaurant
Mm,
and you know everyone's sharing a pizza or whatever it is and you're like, I can't eat that, I'll order separately or something, it'll just be a barrage of questions all night. And people will be like, this bothersome person or whatever. And so culturally it's really, really difficult. um and but my wife supports me to do it, but I don't think she could do it herself. Also, she's a nurse, and it would be really weird for a nurse in Japan, especially, to just go, I'm only eating meat. So, my
okay.
daughter, though, is, she sees what I'm eating. And
Yeah.
what's nice is I've noticed, like, if we go out to a restaurant now, I'll have a steak at the restaurant. And she started ordering steak as well, whereas before she would have been ordering nuggets and chips and fried this and fried that and whatever, as most kids do. And so now she's ordering the steak, and she's eating the steak first because that for her that's a prized thing. And because she's eating the steak first, all the side things that come with it, the salad, the rice, the whatever, she doesn't eat because she's full. So that's I'm happy with the way that's working. She's not carnivore or even close to it, but I know that she's at least getting a lot more nutritious food now, say if we went to a restaurant, than she would have been before.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So when you order your steak, are you just asking them to leave everything off of it, or do you just kind of accept that it's going to come and you just eat what you want?
Yeah, well, see, this is one of the benefits of being a foreigner in Japan. They have a
Yeah.
saying in Japan that the nail that sticks out gets hammered down,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
But that only goes for Japanese people, right? For foreigners, you're always going to stick out, right? So it's like,
Oh
well, you're
yeah.
just a foreigner. You're just a weird
T
foreigner. So that's
Tell me
another
about it.
weird
Yeah.
request. Yeah. So, yeah, I just steak. Yeah, no vegetables, no this, no that, no sauce, no nothing. And yeah, the good thing about Japan as well is a lot of the restaurants you go to, they don't ask you how you want your steak done, right? They just cook it. And the thing is, the Japanese version of what medium is actually very, very, very rare. So
Yes.
you don't end up with this kind of like old boot on your plate, right? They don't ask you, but they give you like a pretty nicely cooked steak. So that's good.
And if you were to like stick out like a sore thumb and say, "Can I have it medium rare or whatever, less than they would normally do it," could they do that? Are they capable of that?
Oh yeah, they would do it, but they just don't
Okay.
ask because it's kind of harmony and conformity and stuff, and they just assume that everyone's going to eat what they're given.
Shop and obey. Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of social pressure. It's a lot of collectivism in
yeah,
the Asian culture.
yeah.
Yeah, which is really beautiful. I experienced that as a wonderful thing. Um, for us as a foreign baseball team, German, all kinds of individuals running around the field to uh, to meet another team that presented as a collective and
Mm,
honoring
mm, mm.
and listening and obeying, and the drills just flow pop 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 like on a like a machine. I as a coach thought that was very attractive.
Yeah, I mean, it's like everything though when you're traveling, like when you're evaluating something about a country, there's always there's pros and cons of everything.
Mm, yeah,
It's like when you think about the Japanese train system, right? The
mm,
trains are never late and they run on the dot unless there's like some sudden crash or maintenance problem or something. They run on
sure.
time to the second. When they pull up at the platform, where the marks are on the platform that say this is where you get on the train, that's where the door opens. Like it's like clockwork. And so that's a big pro about Japan that everyone loves about Japan when they get here. The con to that is the people that are doing the jobs to make that happen are worked to the bone. You know, it's not like
Mm.
it wouldn't be like working in the transit system in America or Australia or somewhere like that or somewhere in Europe because it's just, it'd be like I remember when I worked at McDonald's as a kid, it was like time to lean is time to clean was one of the slogans, right?
Oh
And it would
yeah.
be like that kind of thing, like you get your knuckles wrapped if you're waiting around in the transit system in Japan. So it's kind of there's pros and cons to
Oh, of
everything.
course. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so the doctor says, dude, you got to do something about your health.
Mm.
Alcohol's got to go first. You found a way to get around it. Were you
Mm.
drinking so much that you found you had like a detox? Did you go as you went to this keto this last time? Did you have keto flu and or you done
So
keto often enough that the transition was real easy for you?
I think there's a lot of factors I had in my favor. And
Mm,
one of them is because I'd been on and off keto, low carb so many times over the preceding 20 years that I think my body was kind of somewhat adjusted and knew what was going on. And so I didn't suffer with any kind of, flu or whatever. And I think from that perspective, the giving up the alcohol and whatever didn't affect me either. I mean, of
okay.
course, the urge to drink was very strong the first few days, but there was no kind of I don't think I was at the point of being an alcoholic where I had a situation where I'm shaking or anything like that, not drinking it.
Delirium tremens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Didn't
Yeah,
have the
yeah.
DTs or anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. I had a similar thing. I think I've been trying to do this keto thing for quite a while, and I even successfully I'd lost 15, 20 pounds here and there. Always gained it back though. And so I actually had a complete go through by the doctor in let me think, it must have been October, before October of last year. And he even although I was 130 kilos, he said I was expecting a super fatty liver and there's almost no fat in it. So I'd done keto often enough that a lot of the negative things weren't present. So I understand that. And also when I went straight to carnivore at the beginning of this year, it was just click and it just tasted 1,000 times better than keto ever dreams of tasting. So
Yeah.
I understand that completely.
Mm.
Yeah. So what's your favorite meal? If you said I could fix anything, what would it be?
Oh, if it's favorite meal, I wouldn't be
Yeah.
cooking for myself, and I'd be going out to a nice restaurant that would allow me
Yeah.
to request cooking butter, and I would get them to make me a couple of steaks, like a couple of eye fillets or something like that. I think in the US you'd call it a tenderloin.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, something like that. And smothered in salt, and yeah, that's perfect for me. Like when
Okay, so
I
a tenderloin is actually as a piece of meat, like actually a little bit more lean, and then you would get your fat
mm,
by putting it on top of it, the butter you'd eat it with or whatever.
yeah, I would just put a lot of butter on it.
Yeah,
Uh, uh,
okay.
um, but I'm happy to have something that's more fatty as well, like a nice wagyu steak or something like that. I just
Yeah.
when I went to Australia in October, I was there for about a week, and it ended up being a very expensive week because lunch and dinner was eating in restaurants, steak restaurants, and
Ugh.
I just the restaurant that I went to the most had the most awesome eye fillets. So I was going there at
Mm,
lunch and I'm saying like 2 eye fillets, please. And yeah, it was just awesome. But yeah, I wasn't happy with the credit card bill I got about a month or so later. It's
I
yeah.
bet. Yeah. That's a painful experience, that bill. Yeah. Okay. And so how do you live this in everyday life now?
So every day, I'm only eating once, basically 7 a.m. every day. I get up, I cook a pound of ground beef, 6 to 10 eggs scrambled in the rendered fat from the ground beef, and lathered with salt. And that's basically that does me 24 hours. Yeah. It takes a while to get it down,
I was
but,
going to say that's a lot of
so
food. Yeah.
it's probably 23 hours. So, it takes a good half an hour to polish it off. And yeah, I'm good till the next day.
Cool. And do you get it from the grocery store? Is the meat then of a good quality there for you?
Yeah, the one I have, I'm not sure price wise, maybe for a pound, it's probably around $6 US. Um, and that's Wagyu beef. But there's a caveat to that, and the caveat is that Japan, for some reason, they always mix meat together in ground beef. It's not ground beef; it's ground meat. So 60% of it is beef, 40% of it is pork. So
Ah,
the beef component is Wagyu. I don't know about the pork.
and it's not, is it just not possible to get them pure ground beef?
I think you can, but there's nothing near me, and I'm too lazy to seek out somewhere I can order online or go to Costco or something. So
I mean, if you're satisfied with that and you feel awesome that way, then what do you need to change? Yeah, cool.
true.
Yeah. Okay. So you're doing carnivore, you're starting to feel awesome. And then where does it transition to, you know what? I'm going to become the most prolific interviewer in the carnivore space. Where does that transition happen?
So there's kind of a few steps along the way. So the first thing was I didn't start my channel the way that a lot of people do, and the way a lot of people start their channel. I understand why they do this for motivation. They start their channel when they're starting carnivore. And I think that's a really good way to go because it helps keep you motivated. You get into the community more, things like that. But I didn't know there was a community and I just fell into doing carnivore. So for me, it
Okay.
was like 3 months in before maybe, hang on, June, July, August, September. No, it was 4 months in. So I loaded my first video on my channel um, at the beginning of October. And the reason I decided to make the channel was I was angry because I'd noticed most of the improvements I've experienced with carnivore happened within the
Yeah.
first 2 to 3 months. So I'm sitting there at month 4 and I'm just thinking, I'm angry about this because we've been told every message we've ever had all our lives has been that this is the way to eat, food pyramid, blah, blah, blah. And, I'd done Atkins before. I'd had lots of success and I'd only stayed on induction of Atkins. So that was basically like, you know, s-
Carnivore.
going to carnivore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all these people and media had talked me out of it. There was just this anti Atkins stuff on TV every night. I worked
Mm.
with an ex-dietitian who told me, "Oh, you need your bread," and blah blah blah. And so I let myself get talked out of it. So that made me extra angry because I could have been 20 years into this by now. Um, and yeah, so that's why I started my channel.
To vent.
Mm, to vent, yes, exactly. And ho- hopefully, hopefully I'll reach a couple more people or whatever. And lo and behold, tw- what is it? 16 months later, I'm almost at 50K. So yeah, there's a market for this.
Yeah, I think it's really amazing. I'm so impressed by that. Yeah, I think so would you say your why is now is more the community based? Or are you trying to get the message out to those who don't know about carnivore yet?
Yes, that really is my why, and
Okay.
I've got a lot of videos planned that's kind of sitting in the pipeline that are not interview related, that are more like just trying to get the word out there about things that we learn on carnivore that the average person doesn't know, has no idea about, and if they did, they would start maybe being a little bit more critical in the way they evaluate information from their doctor or, on the news or something like that.
That's really cool. Yeah, that needs to get out there. I mean for me, I think I was predestined to be carnivore. It like I knew from a little tiny kid vegetables suck. And it was I think there was nothing ever attractive to me other than you have to choke them down in some fashion because otherwise you can't get down from the dinner table. So and so I did everything to cover them up, buried them in the mashed potatoes, right? So um, I was destined, yeah. And I've always said if I could just eat meat, I would. It's just now I'm mad because I'm going like, yeah, but they always said that was unhealthy. And I'm going, I could have been doing this for 30 years now, you know?
And like you just think, you could have been doing it for 30 years. I could have been doing it for 20 odd years already. And the muscle that you build just by doing nothing, the health, the vitality, it's quite, I mean, I know we shouldn't look back, but it's quite frustrating to
Um,
think that people can talk us out of this, with faux science.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm getting super motivated about how can I help my players, right? I mean, I'm a baseball coach. I'm thinking like, man, if I mean, I can't like force my players to eat this way, but if they could get it to live this way, if you had an entire team of carnivores that were just like this big old hunk of men, they'd just be nothing but knocking the ball out of the park, and could do it all day long with no lull in their energy. I think like, oh my God, you know. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna write Dr. Chaffee and see if he would do maybe a two-part series on just on sports performance and try to reach my guys that way. So
Yeah,
yeah,
nice.
I'm I'm on it. That's what I think now. So I would love to. I could have avoided it, but it's okay. I'm no regrets. You have to do what you have to do to get to where you are, and now we're motivated. Now we just got to get the message out.
Yeah, that's right.
And with your channel, where do you see you're having the most in terms of the analytics? Where do you see you're having the most reach? I'm just interested.
Country-wise, it's the
Y-
US.
Yeah.
Probably
Okay.
60% of the people on that visit the channel come from the US. And then it
Okay.
kind of goes down, like it's maybe UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Germany's in there somewhere. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, and age-wise, um, it's probably the bulk of the audience is probably 50 plus. But
Okay.
there's still people coming to the channel who are in their early 20s and stuff, but it's not the majority.
And in the comments, I see a lot of people who are relatively new. Um, but
Mm.
would you say you feel like there's more and more new people coming to it? Like it's a growing community? Are we gaining momentum?
I think we are gaining momentum. So I think there's a couple of things to consider, and the first thing to consider is like I feel like the amount of new people that come to my channel now compared to say a year ago is probably a little bit less on a day-to-day basis. They still do, but the thing that's changed in that year is so many more people are doing carnivore, so there are so many more carnivore channels, which, you know, for us is a good thing, because so it's not no longer reliant on a small group of people to try and get the message out there. There are a lot of people getting the message out, which is great.
Yeah. Yeah, in my, I would call it in my circle of friends, it's a much more accepted um, diet option than it would have been 2 years ago, I think. People kind of, I'm not getting direct. The answer isn't immediately, dude, that is like so unhealthy. How could you do that? There seems to be a lot more openness to it. Um, I haven't run across a vegan that I've said it to yet, or a vegetarian. So I'm looking forward to that conversation the first time. But everybody else around me is open to it.
Yeah.
Very
I
interesting.
think what also happens is, I guess, that those people are seeing, you might be the first person that talked to them about it, but, it's like when you say to someone, go outside and look for yellow cars. And suddenly they didn't see any yellow cars before, but now that they're thinking about it, they're seeing yellow cars everywhere. And um, I think it's the same thing with carnivore. You might have been the first person to bring it up, but or someone else brought it up with them. But then now they're suddenly spotting that, hey, there's a lot of people doing this. So there's probably validity in this, because I mean that's how humans work, right? If it was just
Mm.
one person who's walking around going, I'm eating meat only or something, you'd be like, yeah, someone will come along and lock you up at some point. But when, you know, I don't know, when you hear from 5% or of the people you meet, or even only 2% of the people you meet, and they're saying the same thing, it's like it starts to become, oh, maybe this is a thing now. And then you go onto YouTube and you realize there's a lot of carnivore channels. And then someone talks about it on a web magazine that you read, or you see it on the news on the TV or something like that. And it's like, this is a thing.
I know
Mm.
here in Germany, like the people start watching from a distance. They may not present resistance immediately. They kind of hear it, kind of save it, in their random access memory, and then they just check you out over the next while to see if it's one thing you can do, if you don't get sick from it, right? And so they're evaluating
Is,
it over time. That's
is he
very
dead
much here.
yet? Is he dead yet? Is he dead yet?
Yeah. Or is he losing the weight that he talked about, or is he keep it off? So that's a lot. That'll be a lot of it here. So and we'll
Mm.
see. We'll see how it goes. I'm super excited about it. I know. I feel I can probably think of two times in my life where I have felt as good as I am right now, and I was a professional athlete at both times. So one time I raced bicycles for 10 years, like Tour de France kind of bicycles. I did that for 10 years. And there was one stage race where my body just did whatever I asked of it without even thinking a second time. Like for that race, my fitness peaked perfectly. And that was probably one of the most amazing feelings in my entire life. And then I did in 2010. I did the Cologne Marathon. Ran an awesome time. But when I was 17, I played racquetball. I don't know if you know racquetball, but it's like squash in a kind of a square room. And I did that as a like I don't know like a semi-pro level. And there I felt like also I could just tear the world up. But I also had the advantage of being 17. You're still bulletproof and invisible when you're 17.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I'm in permanent turbo mode right now.
How permanent turbo mode? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the energy's always there, right?
It's
Mm,
crazy.
yeah. Yeah. And as you get older, we just accept that things are going backwards, and
Mm.
to be able to just do one thing differently, and that's change the way you eat. And then suddenly it's like, hang on a second, I feel like I did 30 years ago. That's pretty big.
I know for me, it's like huge. I think I think feel like my mood is more stable. My I'm sleeping better. Um, I what I love is that I'm not circling in the kitchen anymore. That was just embarrassing for even myself, uh, there there's this cartoon in the States back like called Delbert, and he used to make up all these words. And there's this one time I saw this, I can't remember what the word was he made up, but there was a verb for going to the refrigerator, opening the door, expecting something new to just appear. And that's was like my life, right? Open the door, oh, it's the same stuff still. So let's talk about like what has changed in terms of like what um if you say I did carnivore, and what is the most notable or the most significant change that you've noticed in terms of body, physical, mental, whatever?
So the list is long, but the significant changes, um, number one is I had arthritis in my left knee, and that's gone. And as I mentioned before, like that was one of the things gone in 2 to 3 months. It was just one day I'm walking and I think, hang on a second, I'm not, this is not labored anymore. I'm not exhausted. And like if I bend down, if I like a squat down, it's not painful. Um, before I used to have to sit on the floor with the young kids that I'm teaching.
Yeah,
And so sitting on the floor for a 45, 50-minute lesson, with your legs crossed, that was hell, like trying to walk that off after the lesson was finished.
it's
And
embarrassing to stand. It's embarrassing to stand up because it takes like 5 minutes to stand up in that
right,
situation.
right. So you're using your hands to push you up on things and stuff. And so, I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting old now. This is it, and so that just disappeared. And um I think the time that I noticed it had gone was I was hustling to get across the road because the lights at an intersection were changing. And when I started to move faster, I had this kind of visceral reaction in my brain that was like, this is gonna hurt. But I just had to keep going and power through it because the lights were changing. And as I was going, I realized this doesn't hurt anymore. And I was like, this is awesome. This feels good. This actually feels good to be moving quickly. And coupled with that, my right side was weaker already. So when I was 17, I had a hemorrhagic stroke. And since that time, since I was 17, my right side has always been weaker. Strength is less in my arm. I limp with my right leg, um, and my reaction times are slower on my right side. So that was always just something I put up with because it's like, what can you do? You have a lot of, you
Mm.
recover very quickly for the first 6 months or so, and then that's it. That's what your life is like now, buddy. And so I never expected anything to change, but it started improving. And it started improving with more strength coming back, more flexibility coming back. I wasn't limping as much. And so running across the road, running up the stairs, running down the stairs, which would have been impossible 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago,
Yeah.
was now like enjoyable. So, yeah, I mean, those are the two big things. But besides that, things have improved. Like I've no longer got gum disease. Um, I can talk to my wife close up and she doesn't recoil from the bad breath that was caused by the gum disease. Um, I my skin's better, I sleep better, my thinking is better. I'm more objective when I'm looking at a situation that's potentially, there's conflict involved. Everything's and you know, one of the number one things is you just get so much time back. So you got
Mm.
time to do things, whether it's, make YouTube videos or start a blog or whatever you're gonna do. It's like you claw back potentially 2 to 3 hours a day.
Because you're only cooking one time, is that why you're saying that, or do you think you just are more
Yeah.
efficient use of time?
So, well, it's probably both, but, mainly regarding the food preparation. And
Mm.
so my lifestyle before would have been like this: wake up, have breakfast, make breakfast, have breakfast, and then spend the next 2 or 3 hours thinking about what you're gonna have for a snack in the morning, and then go out of your way to get that snack, and then think about what am I doing for lunch, and then go out of your way to get that lunch and eat it, and then snack in the afternoon. And what's that snack gonna be? And then dinner, and well, dinner as we've already discussed. And like getting dinner, eating dinner. It's just like all that time adds up, even if it's just thinking about or fantasizing about food. It's like
Fantasizing.
that's an hour a day just thinking about food that you get back, that you're kind of, looking into the air while you're supposed to be working or something.
That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I think I was also, we've been really focusing on our budget right now. We are surprised that um, that we're not spending, at least for my part of the budget. Yeah, my family's also still eating relatively normal, but my part of the budget is not significantly, if any, more expensive.
Yeah, I feel like you save money because you're not buying all the snacks all the time. You're not buying vegetables that are just gonna go brown and go in the bin anyway, that kind of thing.
Have people that you work with, have they noticed the improvement? Have you gotten comments from people?
I haven't had so many comments about things like, um like, "Oh, you're moving better," or anything like that.
Okay.
I mean, my daughter notices it because she'll say to me, "Let's have a race," or something, and I'm, like, up for it now. Whereas, if she'd said to me 2 years ago, "Let's have a race," I'd be like, "Oh, daddy's just gotta take a call right now." Um, so she notices that, but, most people around me just notice the change in my physique. Like, so I'm 15 kilos down or 30 odd pounds,
Yeah.
and the muscle just comes on without having to do anything. And I've never had muscle unless you count that bread belly that I had as a one pack. Like I never had muscle.
I mean, how do you feel then now? I mean, when you're walking through the city, you take your long walk on the way home from work.
Hmm. I feel great. And the just it's like it's hard to explain. It's like a renewed feeling.
Hmm.
It's like it's almost this is a terrible analogy, but it's almost like, um, you've been walking around under this heavy, wet blanket for so long, and someone's finally taken the blanket off and dried you off, and you're like, you're standing up straighter, you're feeling lighter, and you can see things now.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible analogy. As somebody who actually has a considerable, amount of weight that I want to take off, it feels very, very, very much like that. The blanket. All of a sudden, let's see. I mean, my first 6 weeks, uh, basically 18 kilos already.
Mm.
That is, um, it's a small child that I've lost. That was just wrapped around here. I mean,
A child that's already in elementary school. It's like,
probably, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
and so that is so the wet blanket is a very for me a very fitting analogy.
mm.
And do you have more energy for the classes that you've given? Have you had to work? You've been off for a while, from what I understand.
So yeah, I've permanently off at the moment. Um,
Okay.
so I've fortunately I've got some little internet things that I set up, a while ago, some investment stuff and whatever that is tiding me over. But right at the moment, I've just my main focus has just been on, okay, well, I've got this kind of break. I'm really into making YouTube videos and the interviews and stuff now, so I'm just going hard on that. And yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have the energy for the amount I'm doing now, you know. So it's great.
Have you noticed the difference when you do get sick? Is the experience of being sick significantly different for you?
I think so, because both I've only been sick twice in the time I've been carnivore,
Okay.
and it was something that went through the whole family at the same time. So I'm actually, you'll notice I'm occasionally doing that. I'm recovering from the flu at the moment, and while the recovery process seems to be quite slow and protracted, um, I didn't suffer as much with it as my wife and daughter. My fever wasn't as bad as my wife and daughter. Um, and when I did have a fever, it was very short lived. Like it was over one night rather than over a period of days. And the same thing happened when I was 3 months into carnivore. We all got COVID, and that hit my wife really bad, hit my daughter really bad, but didn't hit me much at all. I did lose my voice, but that's partly down to my job because I had to continue working, and so I was stressing my voice already. So it was kind of remote lessons, and so, but I didn't get a fever. The whole time I had COVID, there was no fever, and they were down for the count. So from because both sicknesses I've had the same time as family, I would say I think I am dealing with sickness better.
We had a similar thing. The flu went through about a month ago, so maybe 6 weeks, 4 weeks into for my first time being sick, being in carnivore. My wife was like really out, complete with getting sick, fever, the whole thing. Really interesting for me. I definitely slept more. I was definitely fighting something, but I didn't have the nausea at all.
Mm.
I kind of felt um, like my actual stomach, the muscles of the stomach were sore. Like somehow or other my stomach was working out. The actual container of the stomach was sore. Inside was
Mm.
nothing. Um, it was an amazing thing, and I was over it much faster than she was. And I thought, oh, if this
Mm.
is what's going to be, then there's another reason to do it. So if you had some advice that you would give a new carnivore, you're like well, let's do one. Somebody's thinking about it but hasn't started it. Why should they consider it?
I think they should consider it because they don't know how good they could feel until they change the way they're eating. So when you've been pumping poison into your body your whole life, and that's what sugar is, and that's what alcohol is, and whatever else, right? Grains and stuff. When you've been pumping poison into your body your whole life,
Yeah.
the thing that you don't understand is what life is like without that, right? So you imagine there's some, I don't know, Russian dissident or something that gets slowly poisoned, right? Like they start to get sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker as they're being poisoned more and more and more, right? But if you stop giving them poison, they're probably going to recover.
Mm.
And so I would say to someone who's on the fence about carnivore, the reason you want to try is because you want to give yourself 90 days just to. I would say to anyone that um, is thinking about carnivore but on the edge, um, I would say, look, you don't know how you can feel until you've tried it. So you need to give it a try for 90 days. And the kind of the easy way for them to say, "Oh, I could never do that," is because they can't imagine themselves doing something like this for 90 days and denying themselves of the poison for 90 days. And so what I would say to them then is, don't think about it for 90 days. Just think about day one. Just
Ah, okay.
focus on get just focus on getting through day one without cheating. Just stay carnivore for all of day one. And then what's going to happen is they're going to wake up on day two. And when they wake up on day two, the first thought they're going to have is, I did it. I stayed the whole day without cheating. And the second thing is your resolve is now stronger to get through day two because you're like, well, I feel good as well. Right. And
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
now all you've got to do is focus on getting through day two. Don't worry about, oh, I can't do another 90 days of this. I feel good, but I can't do that. Just focus on getting through day two. Day three, you wake up, first thought you're going to have is, I did it again. Second thing you're going to think is, I feel even better. I slept better. Third thing is, your resolve is just cranked up a notch again. And you follow this process. Just all you need to do is for 7 days. And by day seven, you're like, bring it on. 90 days is a cakewalk or a steak walk, you know?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. I love that idea of one day at a time. I haven't heard anybody say that. It's the mantra of the self-help groups, right? So one day at a time, and I think that's exactly right. Yeah.
So when you're thinking about starting, you're already putting all these hurdles in front of yourself, like this is not going to work. No diet's ever worked for me. I'm useless. I'm fat. I'm always just going to be fat. Blah, blah, blah. Right. So you've already got all that negativity. And then you couple that with, how can I do this for 90 days? I can't even do any other diet for 2 weeks. I'm never going to do this for 90 days, let
Mm,
alone some of these people have been doing it for 40, 50 years. I can't do that. And so take all that friction away, and then you're more likely to get to success.
that's really good. Oh, that's great advice, Dave. Thank you. And so they say, okay, so I'm in it now. I've decided I'm going to do it, but I don't have a really clue how to do it. So now I'm in it. I'm going to start doing it. Like for beginners, what's the thing that you think causes success more than anything else?
Well, I think if they're in it, I mean, there are people that don't understand what a carbohydrate is. That's one thing I noticed just being on keto, and because you get some people saying to you, "I'm keto," and it's like, well, why are you eating the loaf of bread then? You know, so you know, almond flour or not, that's not good for you. Um, so the as long as you can get people to understand what they can eat, then I think everything, and they're doing that day at a time, everything else takes care of itself, right? So if you're just clear about eggs, nothing in it. No seed oils, beef, pork if you want it, lamb if you want it, that kind of stuff. Probably better to stick to beef or lamb at the start anyway. You just focus on that. No seasonings, no, if you feel like, I can't have it without my sauce, that's when you have to think about how much salt you're putting on it and put more salt. And just focus them on making sure that they don't um, you know, pick carbohydrates, because no one learns really consciously, okay, well, this is a carbohydrate, this isn't, right? So you get someone putting a sweet potato into something and not realizing it's a carbohydrate. Um, so yeah, as long as they understand steak, eggs, lamb, salt, water. I mean, if they're getting started and they're a coffee addict, I wouldn't be trying to get them to stop coffee because, you're getting them to try and stop everything at once. Um, but if they can just stick to that, everything else, and they do a day at a time, everything else takes care of themselves. By day 30, they won't want to go back. They may still be getting cravings initially, but they won't want to go back. By day 60, they'll be like, okay, this is easier. And but day 90, it's like, yeah, there's no way. This like I've never felt this good. The blanket's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I'm just starting to begin to feel that way. I can't imagine what it's going to be in 2 or 3 months. So I'm super, super excited about it. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm amazed that you're exactly right. People don't really know what a carbohydrate is and what they're doing to themselves. That's very, very, very true.
I think some people, when they hear about keto and stuff, what they might think is because you can have some vegetables, like to up to, 20 grams or whatever. What they maybe start to think is if it's kind of in a packet or it's a cake or something prepared in a shop, that's a carbohydrate. But then I can eat some vegetables, so maybe vegetables are okay and that kind of thing. So it's just the important thing is just that they understand, carnivore means no vegetables. See how you go without the veg and everything.
Yeah. The key is the root of the word, right? Carn, yeah, meat. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Cool. Well, Dave, is there anything else as we're closing up, any message you would like to give us?
Look, my message is for anyone that's out there that hasn't tried it, you don't know how you could feel. You really don't. So give it 30, 60, 90 days. And there's there's something to be said by the fact that this seems to be the only way of eating, that there's so many testimonials out there. There's no one, find someone on YouTube anywhere that's saying, that's not paid by some vegan backed organization, that's saying, I tried carnivore, it's terrible. I put on weight. I was sick all the time. No one's saying that. And when no one's saying that, that says a lot about this way of eating, right? Especially
That's
no
really
one's
true.
saying that, and there's a lot of opposition, and still no one's saying it.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. That's good. Okay, so where can we find you, Dave? What in the internet, on social media, where can we find you?
So the best place to go is head over to YouTube, and in the search bar, just type in "no carb life," 3 words, or you can put in my handle, which is at zero carb, and I'll come up with either of those searches.
And you'll see the endless list of interviews that are all super interesting and super encouraging.
So
It's very,
yeah, up to 200 something now. So yeah.
it's just, thank you for your work. It's been very, very encouraging for me. So yeah, cool. Well, that's amazing. So thank you, Dave. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being the first one here and your service to the carnivore community. It's been really amazing.
Thank you so much for having me on, Charlie. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, that's cool. Great. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Have a great day, bud.